here we've got our workbook 6.8, number 23. So what we're going to do is we have to figure out how to solve this. So what do you think we'll do first? Yeah, let's graph it. So I'm going to go over here to our graphing calculator, delete that, and we'll enter in our new function. So go ahead and plug that into. So here what we do, we graph it into our calculator. Now this is the free calculator you'll find on Blackboard Learn, so you can graph your functions. So I graph this and I look here and I say, well, where is it crossing? I've got one here and I've got one here. So let's go ahead and begin to factor this. So I'm going to factor out a 2. So I'm going to come back here. I've got a 2. Now synthetic division is a little tricky here with this one. I need to account for every variable. So this is my 6th. I don't have any x to the 5th. I don't have an x to the 4th. But I do have an x to the 3rd. I don't have an x squared, x to the 1st, or my constant. So technically I would need all of those zeros. So let's see what we've got. I'm going to bring down my first term and multiply back here and add my columns. I bring this down, multiply back here and add my columns. Here I have 8. So that's 0. I multiply back here, and I have 0. I'm going to add my column. So I can see now at this point that these zeros are going to go on, right? Because I've got a bunch of zeros. All right, multiply and add. So now I can write my factor. So this is my first factor here. I'm going to bring this down. It's always as x minus r, which is your 0. Here it's 2. And then here we've got our factor. We reduce our exponent by a factor of 1, and we write our answers. So the first term is 1x to the 5th minus 2x to the 4th plus 2x to the 4th plus 4x cubed. So now I decide, can I factor something out from my polynomial? What can I factor out from my polynomial? I can take out an x cubed. I actually could do that back up here at this step. I could factor out an x cubed. If I took out an x cubed at this step, I would be left with an x cubed minus 8, which I would recognize as a difference of perfect cubes. And I can use my difference of perfect cube formula. But here, I can factor out my x cubed. So if I take out an x cubed, I can I'll bring it out front. I've got x cubed, then I have an x minus 2. So I've taken x cubed from this term, and I've brought it out front. So I'm left with an x squared. I've taken x cubed out of here and brought it out front, and I'm left with 2x. And again, an x cubed and brought it out front here. And my last term is plus 4. Any questions on this stuff here? So, can I factor this here? Well, can I factor it? Let's give it a whirl. Let's try. Factor your first term. So I've got x and x. Now the factors of 4, there's 2 factors, 4 and 1. That would give me an outside of 1x and an inside of 4x. That doesn't work. So let's try 2 and 2. So we'll factor 2 and 2. That gives me an outside of 2 and an inside of 2. That doesn't work. So what do I have to do? The quadratic formula. So we're going to plug this into a quadratic formula. So I have A here is 1, B is 2, and C is 4. The quadratic formula is the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Can't factor it, we tried.
Why not? It worked.
Okay, so take a moment to plug this into the, right, so I'm going to let's plug this into our quadratic formula. So the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is 2 squared, minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2 So 4 minus 16 is going to be 12, negative 12. So I have negative 2 plus or minus square root of negative 12 divided by 2. So what can I factor out of 12? What is a perfect square in 12? 4 is a perfect square in 12. So I can factor out a 4. And what is the square root of 4?
Half four.
4 is a factor of 12.
I knew it.
Yep. Yeah, I could rewrite it. Yeah, I would not want to do 4 times 4. I would want to do 4 times 3 is what I would put under the radical. 4 times 3. And the square root of 4 is 2. We're not looking for 16. We're not looking for the square root of 16. We're doing the square root of 4. So the square root, so this becomes, I can write it out, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 times 4 times 3 divided by 2. This is 12, right? So now let's go ahead and do the square root. So I've got negative 2 plus or minus. I can bring out an I, and the square root of 4 becomes 2. So this is a 2I square root of 3, all divided by 2. And I can reduce, so I must. All of the 2's cancel. So I'm left with negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 3. So let's go back and look at what all of my answers are.
It's still not fixed though.
There's no,
What are you talking about?
Just don't you need six answers? So it starts with 6.
okay, so let's look at what we have for our answers. That's right, there would be a couple of, so let's go back here and look. We have for this factor, for this quadratic here, that's where we started our quadratic equation. We have 2 solutions. Those 2 solutions are 1 plus I square root of 3 and 1 minus I square root of 3. This solution here is, I'm going to set it equal to 0 and I get 2. And here this x cubed, when I set it equal to 0, I'm going to have 0. So how many zeros would there be there? Right? So really this would be like x is 0, 0, and 0. Right? I would. Any questions on this? So here, this x cubed is equal to 0. That's where I get this 0. And really, there's 3 zeros in there, right? Because it's cubic, there would be 3. So that's 3